car owners and Datsun enthusiasts all over. My name is Brian. I'm coming to you from Walker Z Racing. Today I'm working to install a drive shaft loop around my 77 280Z drive shaft. Now I've got an LQ4 under the hood, so I'm pushing quite a bit more torque than was originally intended on the chassis, and I've got a limited slip in the rear end along with 300ZX CV shafts. So I've beefed up the drive system as a whole, but to make sure that the car stays safe and the track that I go drag racing on stays safe, I'm going to go ahead and install a drive shaft loop. Now this loop is made out of 3" by 1/4" thick steel, so that should prevent anything if the drive shaft ever does break from catastrophically taking out the rest of the track and the car. And this is going to be installed as far forward within about 3 inches of the transmission U-joint, to make sure that if the drive shaft does break on the front end, that drive shaft doesn't nose down and dig into the track or the ground, and then push all that force back on the differential. So if the differential end breaks, that'll be very bad as a whole, but it will not be quite as catastrophic as if the nose of the drive shaft broke. So that's why I'm working to install that today. Let's get you under the car and see what's going on. Looking under the car now, you can see that drive shaft loop that I was talking about. As I said, this is 3 inches across, and it's a 1/4" thick. It's a 1/4" thick steel, and that's being held in place by one 10mm bolt. And this is a nylon lock bolt to just make sure that it won't vibrate loose. Now this was purchased as a kit, but the kit it came in was a universal kit that bolts together, and it's really bulky. It's meant for cars with a lot of room underneath. The Datsun, as most of y'all know, does not have that. So what I did is I cut it up, and it is approximately 10 inches from the very top to the very bottom. I'm sorry, 5 inches from the very top to the very bottom. And that is just enough room for the drive shaft to go through and clear with about a 1/2 inch on the very bottom. One of the reasons I didn't have the extra room is right below that is 3" stainless exhaust. And then it had to be in this location because the swing arm for the parking brake, emergency brake, this comes forward and it stops about here, which is about, I say, a 1/2 inch to 1 inch away from the edge of it. So any further back and it would not have cleared, and any further forward, and I say it would not have been successful at doing its job if the front U-joint ever does break. Now we'll take a look out at the inside of the car where that bolt comes out at. Okay, on the inside of the car now, I don't have an actual ashtray anymore. I've actually pulled it out and I put in electronic window motor switches, but up under there you can see that hex bolt right there. If I can get the camera to focus, that is the other side of the bolt, and underneath that bolt there is another piece of 1/4" by 3" by about 1.5" steel, just to act as a giant washer, just to make sure that is extra sturdy on this side. Since I only do have the one bolt, I wanted to make sure that it is as tight as possible. Now I don't know if you do still use your ashtray, if that will interfere with the use of it, but I suspect that you could either use a different bolt head to do so, or say use like a panhead bolt to gain some clearance for that ashtray. Now, here in a second, I'll take us outside the car and we can talk about some of the drive shaft bolts that I'm using. Back outside the car now, I have with me not the stock, but a stock 8mm bolt that came off the Datsun. Now, I don't have the original drive shaft bolts. Those were either destroyed or lost a long time ago. But I do have a set of micrometers and a stock 8mm Datsun bolt. Now, that's not going to come out to 8mm exact. That comes out to, as you can see, 7.59 approximately. So it's less than 8, 7.45, about 7.5 is going to be the average diameter of that bolt. And then the bolt that I use, it's actually a grade 8, 5/16 by 18, and this is an 1.25 inch bolt. Now this bolt at the shoulder measures, you can see right there, so it's 7.85. So it's definitely thicker at the neck, and then down at the actual threads, right there, 7.77. So this is overall a little bit larger in diameter, and it is a grade 8 bolt. So it's the same strength technically as the 10.9 metric bolts, but this is a US standard bolt. So granted, you know, it's blasphemy kind of to put a US standard bolt on a Japanese car on the Datsun, but I say, these are a lot cheaper. I can find them anywhere, and I know when I was trying to put the drive shaft in the first time, I could not find anything that would fit with the tight space with the differential flange and the drive shaft flange that worked. So I went ahead and bought these. These have been great, and I've just pulled off the old set, and they looked good, but I went ahead and bought some new ones here at the local hardware store for less than $5. So this is a cheap and safety oriented upgrade that I've done. And I say, if you're pushing a lot of power, I recommend making sure that your drive shaft bolts are up to the snuff. So now, anybody that has installed one of these drive shafts knows how big of a pain it is to install these. Is that you've got a very tight working space. But again, there is your 5/16 inch bolt with a washer underneath, and that fits perfectly in that little recess meant for that washer. And on the back side, I'm actually using a let's see if I can focus. It is a grade 8 locking flange nut, and again, since these are all US standard, they're readily available and fairly cheap. So I highly recommend installing these. Let me go ahead and get this screwed in, tightened up, and I'll show you guys the finished product. And there's the finished product on the 5/16 by 18 by 1.25 inch bolts. Now you can see on the back there, I do have quite a bit of thread sticking out the back side of that locking nut. If you were going with a washer on the back side with a locking washer and then a nut, 1.25 would be perfect. I say I probably could have gotten away with 1 inch and still had a full thread contact with that nut. But I say I had previously had a 1.25 inch with that washer and lock washer and then the nut. So that's just what I went ahead and bought this time. But it is still a perfect match for the drive shaft. I know I say finding those 8mm bolts can be somewhat difficult, especially trying to find them that fit down in that recessed portion. But that is a perfect alternative. Now let's go back and look at that drive shaft loop up above. So there it is. So you can see the amount of clearance I have on both the sides. I probably have about an inch and a half on either side, and then about 3/4 inch up against the bottom of it, and about 2.5 on the top. But overall, that is going to help protect the drive shaft and the car if it ever does decide to break and give me any problems while I'm at the track. So again, not a hard install. It took about probably 3.5, maybe 4 hours total from start to finish to remove the drive shaft, actually build and weld up the drive shaft loop, go to the hardware store, pick up the hardware, and then actually install it, reinstall the drive shaft, and so on. So not very time consuming, but it is just an extra safety precaution. Now, if you are an actual drag racer out there and you're looking at this going, that's not NHRA certified, 100% agree with you. This is not NHRA certified race car. I don't have occasion, I don't have anything in it. It's just a daily driver that I like to take out to the strip. What this does for me, and it could do for you, is in the event that you ever do have a catastrophic failure, it could help protect you, protect your vehicle, and also protect those that are on the road or on the track with you. If you have any questions about the car, it's again a 1977 Datsun 280Z. It's actually a 2+2, so I got the back seat. But I've got LQ4 in there, running with 4L60E CX racing headers. I've got, I say, top to bottom everything that I could do to the car done. I've got the wide body Rocket Bunny kit in the front, a little bit different fenders in the back. But if you got any questions about the car, you want any specific videos, any information on it, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do for y'all.